The rain poured down in relentless sheets, drumming on the hood of the old pickup as if the sky itself was falling apart. Jake tightened his grip on the steering wheel, squinting through the windshield wipers that struggled to keep up. His two daughters, Lily and Emma, sat quietly in the back seat, their schoolbooks balanced on their laps. They had learned long ago not to complain about the leaky roof of the truck or the way the heater sometimes gave out. It was all they had, and their dad worked too hard to keep it running. It was late, and they were heading back from visiting Jake's sister, when the beam of his headlights caught something unusual on the roadside. A sleek black car, the kind Jake could never dream of owning, sat crumpled against a tree. Steam hissed from the hood, and one of the headlights flickered dimly like a dying star. Without hesitation, Jake pulled over, his heart hammering. "Stay in the truck," he told his daughters firmly. But Lily, the older one, leaned forward, her eyes wide. "Dad, someone might be hurt." Jake grabbed his jacket and flashlight, running into the rain. As he approached the car, he saw the driver's side door half open. Slumped against the steering wheel was a woman, her face pale, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. She groaned weakly when Jake tapped the door. "Hey, don't worry, I'm here to help," Jake said, his voice calm though his pulse raced. He pulled the door wider, trying to be gentle. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, dazed and unfocused. "Help," she whispered, before slipping into unconsciousness. Jake lifted her carefully, his muscles straining. He wasn't young anymore, and years of construction work had left his back sore, but there was no way he'd leave her there in the storm. Carrying her to the truck, he laid her across the back seat, Emma moving aside quickly to give space. "Is she going to be okay, Daddy?" Emma asked, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "I'll make sure she is," Jake answered, forcing confidence into his tone. He drove straight to the nearest hospital, praying the whole way that he wasn't too late. Her name was Claire Donovan, and Jake didn't know it then, but she was one of the wealthiest businesswomen in the state. Known in magazines and on the news, she was a self-made millionaire with investments, charities, and a reputation for being untouchable. But when Jake saw her lying in that hospital bed the next day, she didn't look like a woman of power. She looked fragile, lost, and strangely human. Claire regained consciousness within hours, confused but alive. The doctors said she'd be fine with rest and treatment. She asked who had brought her in, and when Jake walked into her room with his daughters shyly clinging to his hands, she studied him with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "You saved my life," she said softly. Her voice was hoarse, but her eyes were steady now. Jake shrugged, embarrassed. Anyone would have stopped. "No," Claire corrected him. "Not everyone would have." The hospital released her 2 days later, though she still looked pale and worn. Claire had no family nearby, and her assistant was away overseas. When she tried to leave alone, Jake's daughters tugged on his sleeve. "We can't let her go by herself," Emma whispered. So Jake did something unexpected, even to himself. He offered to drive her home. Claire hesitated, pride battled with vulnerability, but eventually nodded. Her mansion was unlike anything Jake or the girls had ever seen. Marble floors, chandeliers, sweeping staircases. Emma gasped openly while Lily tried to hide her awe. Jake, however, noticed the emptiness. It was a beautiful house, yes, but it felt cold, like a museum. "Thank you again," Claire said, standing in her doorway as though she didn't quite know how to say goodbye. She looked down at the little girls. "And thank you both, too." They grinned, and Emma asked innocently, "Do you get lonely in such a big house?" Claire blinked, taken aback by the question. She didn't answer, only smiled faintly before closing the door. That might have been the end of it, but life has a way of weaving unexpected threads together. A week later, Claire showed up at Jake's modest home, holding a bag of groceries. "I wanted to thank you properly," she explained. Jake tried to refuse, embarrassed, but she insisted. "At least let me cook dinner. It's been a while since I had company." The girls were thrilled, and soon laughter filled the small kitchen as Claire, in her elegant clothes, clumsily chopped vegetables while Emma giggled at her mistakes. Jake watched from the side, feeling something shift deep inside him. It was the first time in years he'd seen his daughters so carefree. Dinner became a ritual, then outings, then small moments of trust. Claire would talk about her lonely rise to success, how she had buried herself in work to escape her painful childhood. Jake shared stories of his wife, who had passed away when the girls were very young, and how every day felt like a balancing act between being a father, provider, and nurturer. For the first time in a long while, they both felt less alone. But challenges came, as they always do. Claire's world and Jake's world couldn't have been more different. When the media caught wind of her spending time with a construction worker and his daughters, headlines blazed with speculation. Jake hated the attention, it embarrassed his girls at school, and neighbors whispered. One night, Jake told Claire, "This isn't good for the kids. Maybe we should stop seeing each other." His voice cracked slightly as he said it. Claire looked at him, hurt flashing across her face. "So because I have money, I'm not allowed to be human? I didn't ask for the cameras. She broke off, her voice trembling. "I just wanted to belong somewhere." Jake didn't answer. He couldn't. His fear of failing his daughters was stronger than his desire to fight for himself. Weeks passed in silence, each day heavier than the last. Then, one afternoon, Lily came home from school in tears. Some classmates had mocked her, saying her dad was just using a rich woman. Jake's anger burned, but before he could act, Claire arrived at their door. She had seen the same headlines, heard the same whispers, and for once, she didn't care about reputation. Facing Lily, she knelt down and said firmly, "Your dad saved my life. He's not using me. If anything, I need him more than he needs me. And I need you, too." Her eyes shone as she spoke. Jake stood frozen, his throat tight. From that moment, things changed. Claire began including Jake and the girls in her world, not as charity, but as family. She used her influence to protect their privacy from the media. Jake, in turn, showed her what it meant to live simply, to find joy in small things, a picnic by the river, movie nights on the couch, laughter over burnt pancakes. Yet the greatest challenge was internal. Jake struggled with pride. Could he really belong in her world? Could a man who patched holes in roofs and worried about bills stand beside a woman who signed million-dollar deals? One evening, he finally confessed his fears. Claire listened quietly, then took his calloused hands in hers. "Jake, I spent years building wealth, but I never built a home. You and your daughters gave me that. Don't you see, you're the one who rescued me, not just from the accident, but from myself." Tears stung Jake's eyes as he realized the truth. He wasn't less, he was enough. Their journey wasn't without bumps, but they walked it together. The girls grew to love Claire as though she'd always been there. Claire learned how to braid Emma's hair, how to cheer at Lily's soccer games, how to be present. Jake, for his part, found strength in knowing he didn't have to carry everything alone anymore. Years later, people still remembered the story of the roadside rescue. But for Jake and Claire, the real miracle wasn't the accident, it was what grew from it. Two broken paths crossing, healing, and creating something stronger. Love, family, and the courage to believe that sometimes, life changes for the better when you least expect it. No matter how different two people seem, love doesn't measure worth by wealth, status, or background. It measures by kindness, sacrifice, and the willingness to open your heart. Jake rescued Claire that stormy night, but in truth, they rescued each other. And together, they proved that family isn't just about where you come from, it's about who you choose to hold on to when life gets hard.